Alright, I do not have a topic in mind, but I'm gonna see how long I can ramble for, and just like, this is just gonna be a test run for me. I wanted to kind of make one of the more long-form videos again, because, you know, I know that there are people who listen to like, my videos. I know one of them in person. Shout out to Z-Man, my guy, my bro, my homie. He's the real one, he's the realist. He's the only Buckeye in the world that matters. I'm joking, I'm joking, I'm joking. Or am I? Anyway, howdy folks, my name is Fisher, and welcome to another Rambling About Nothing. This is another filler episode, because, you know, my life's pretty boring. I don't really have a lot to talk about. I'm not a very interesting person. I don't have a lot of really weird philosophical crap rolling around in my brain. Maybe I do. Maybe it's just that my viewpoint on the world is so normal to me because I've spent so much of my life in my own head that when I see the rest of the world, I'm like, man, that's weird. But in reality, it's normal. In reality, it's normal. For instance, kind of just the fact that I've noticed this with a lot of people, in particular a lot of like live streaming types and stuff, that in general, they just refuse to say I don't know. Like, I mean, like this. So, if you don't know something, it's alright to say I don't know. Most people won't do that. They just are like, okay, so logically right, if you do this and then you do that and then you do the other, then, you know, you just know, and then, you know, you can reasonably come across and blah 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 blah. And it's like, sometimes, dude, you just don't need to know. And that's just, I think that's something that more people could serve to learn, is that you just don't always need to know. Like, here's the thing, right? I'm an amateur anthropologist. I don't have any credentials or nothing about it. And I hope that's not my dad. Anyway. You have all this credentialism and stuff that's going on, and all these people with credentials, they have to be like, okay, I know this, I know that, so therefore I should know this. For instance, I know economics and I know social, like, insert social crap, so therefore I should know how to craft a country. And sometimes you just don't know. I remember what I was going to say. I'm an amateur anthropologist. I study a lot of kind of the European culture. Well, not European, because that's kind of a misnomer. Saying that there's like a monolithic European culture is like saying that there's a monolithic Asian culture, because you're trying to bring countries that are so dissimilar as Finland and Portugal and Malta and Greece and Scotland, Ireland. You're trying to bring all these countries that, on their surface, yeah, they look very similar. And you're trying to put them together. That's like saying, oh yeah, China, Iran, both Asian. Which is why we kind of like are... It's not exactly... It's a misnomer, yeah. But for me, it's mostly like the Germanic world. That's something I like studying, as well as like Caucasia. And this is something that annoys me to no end. Especially when I'm like filling out stuff for like job applications and stuff. It's like, okay, so I'm none of these things. Because they'll have black, white, Hispanic, and then like Caucasian. They won't actually. They've kind of stopped having white, and they've just kind of pushed everything into Caucasian, which is funny to me, because most of the people of the Caucasus wouldn't exactly fall under what these people are calling Caucasian, because I mean, like, the closest are like the Georgians. Shout out to anyone watching from the wonderful lands of Sakartvelo. I used to know a greeting in Georgian. I forgot it. I apologize. I have to brush up on my Georgian, but I've been learning a lot more German recently. maybe once I'm done, it's gonna take me like a year or two to really like get to a comfortable point with German to where I want it to be. Once I'm done with that, I'll start learning Georgian. I'll try and find a way, because right now I'm using Duolingo for German, and I don't know how good of a source that is. I've heard a lot of people say that Duolingo is not a particularly good source for language learning, and then there's people who are like, oh yeah, Duolingo is the single best source in the modern day for learning languages. And it's like, I don't know how much of this is true. I'm just gonna kind of keep chilling, keep doing my own thing, trying to make sure this crap works. Anyway, what was I saying? So sometimes you just don't know, right? When it comes to what I was talking about, anthropology, sometimes there are things that you simply cannot know. We don't know, for instance, like we can go back and back and back until we find like the oldest example of something like German or Georgian. I know it's probably called like sekarta or something like that, but I'm not gonna call it that because it makes me sound extremely white. You know I am. But essentially, it's like, hey, we don't know what these people actually sound like, and it's a constant work in progress. So having this solid, like, oh, we know type of idea is kind of dumb, right? Like, it's extremely stupid to be like, oh yeah, we just know this. 1 + 1 = 2. Simple. There are things that are just true. There are things that are just true. There are quintessential truths that we just know that are true. But there are also things that we simply can't know. What is the smallest bit of matter in the universe? People say it's the atom, but then it's like, isn't the Planck length? Like, there's something smaller than an atom. I thought I remember hearing something about that. Or the atomic particle, something smaller than that. But here's the thing about that, right? I'm not a physicist. I think some physics is pretty cool, but the more we get into like that tiny world, like I've heard it before called the realm of God. I really do not think that a place like that we should be, messing with, but ultimately that it doesn't matter what I think, because I'm just some loser who works a full-time job at a retail chain. I don't matter. Even though I'm probably capable of thinking on at least like not a parallel, but a below parallel level of like basic logical thought. I probably wouldn't be able to actually like speak academically, but I could understand it. Anyway, for me, that kind of stuff is just like, I don't know. I know the basics of how a nuclear warhead works, but I don't know the process of making that. I don't know the process of this or that or the other. Sometimes it's good not to know. There's this whole idea of like, ignorance is bliss, right? And so you are ignorant, you know nothing. It's the monkeys. See no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, do no evil. That's like a Asian proverb. I forget exactly which country it's from. I want to say China, but then again, a lot of people would say China. I don't know if it's like China or Tibet or India. One of the countries in East Asia that contributes a lot to philosophy, so it could be pretty much any of them. I even heard somewhere that Indonesia has a pretty popular school. It's Indonesia. It's pretty damn populous. It's one of like, I thought it was like in the top 10 of populous countries, which is crazy to me considering that like most of their population lives in Jakarta. But then again, there's a lot of things I don't know about East Asia. Like, the only countries I've learned about East Asia are Japan, Thailand, a little bit about the Korea. Actually, here's a fun fact about that. The first, like, world studies, I guess you could call it, thing that I did was on North Korea. which is kind of crazy to think about. Like, I was in 3rd grade, and our homeroom teacher, because 3rd grade you don't have like different classes where you have to walk through. You do, but it's like it's electives, it's extracurriculars. It's not like the base curriculum. History being a base curriculum, you would have to you would do it in your homeroom. Oh, forgive me. I just had lunch, so I'm a little bit gassy. I had meatballs. Oh man. Ugh. But essentially, we had to do a study on a bunch of different classes, and I was like, okay, is Japan? And I asked my teacher, I was like, is Japan an option? And he said, nope, someone already took Japan. And I said, is Germany an option? Because at the time, I didn't know a lot about history, but I knew that my one side of my family had lived in Germany for some time, and I've heard that parent speaking German and that kind of stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, that could be cool. You can see how, like I think that that idea that boys pick their personality very early on in their lives and then they just kind of stick to it, I think that's pretty accurate, considering that, you know, a lot of my childhood was spent like being really interested in history and other cultures, and now that's like my main hobby. That and video games, 2 things that I started messing with very early on in my life. Anyway, so basically, like, the only ones that were options were like a bunch of East Asian, a bunch of like smaller like East Asian and Pacific Islands. I think Micronesia was still an option. I think it was still up there, but I ultimately saw North Korea, and I was like, hey, I do Taekwondo. That's Korean. I'm gonna take North Korea. And so, at the ripe age of, how old would I have been in 3rd grade? Like 6? I got to learn about communism and Juche, and the fact that the North Korean government beheads Christians, and that you can't really travel there very completely. I actually have it. I think it's sitting in my room. I basically put in the bare minimum of effort on this project because it was extremely uncomfortable. My mom ended up having to help me, and it was like, wow, why did my teacher even have this as an option? Why are we talking about, why is my kid having to learn about like communism and Juche and anti-religious beheadings by an extremist state? And it's just like, man, that's crazy. So it was a social studies class. It wasn't specifically history, it was social studies, which I still found very weird when I was little, and I find very weird today. Why are we splitting up social studies and history? Or why are we lumping history in with social studies? Like, I know I'm just gonna keep going off on tangents, but I really do think that it would probably be a lot better for children of the next generation if we started putting history, like putting the humanities back into public schools. The issue with that is that the pool of teachers is so small because the schooling system actively takes the people who would be good at teaching the humanities and tells them, we don't want you. We don't want you in this school. We don't want you anywhere near these kids because we want to indoctrinate them. We want to indoctrinate them in socialist thought. So therefore, any kind of humanities, that's not allowed unless it's social studies. At least that's what I got from the bare amount of research I did when I wanted to be a history teacher. I was going to go for European history, but they don't do that in American schools anymore. There's American history, there's like history, just standard history, which is American history, but they just talk about the World Wars and slavery, and that's it. That's the curriculum. And you're supposed to teach the test, which is going to be off the curriculum. So you can't be cool and be like, hey kids, today we're going to learn about Alaskan pioneers, or hey kids, we're going to learn about Ohio and how it was the first frontier of the United States of America. Or hey kids, who do you think invented these cool American inventions. Let's go down that line of thought. Let's just be like, hey, let's actually encourage some curiosity. Hey kids, what parts of Europe do you think most Americans came from? Like, I don't see that as being particularly a bad thing. Then again, once again, I don't know. It's not my job to teach people at the moment. I would love in the future for it to be my job, but then again, there I go being wishy-washy. I already know what I want to do for a job, so yeah. Yeah. I mean, damn, it's only been 15 minutes. How did I do those old videos? I guess I was getting distracted a lot while I was playing the game. Man, shoot. Anyway. Not knowing is not a bad thing. Like, not knowing how to do statecraft is not a bad thing. Not knowing how to whittle is not a bad thing. Not knowing how to do things is not necessarily a bad thing. It's really when you have the option to learn how to do things, and then you just don't. That's the bad part. That was what I was doing a lot in middle school. I was just like completely shut off. I was like, I don't want to learn a damn thing. I just want to sit on my butt and play video games. And I mean, yeah. I'm 21 years old and I wish I had paid more attention in history class and in like the small amount of the humanities I got to learn for like extracurricular. It was like, wow. And I mean, like, it was a... Do I get to say the specific state? I'm trying to think about it. If I say the specific state and people realize what I'm talking about, they're gonna be like, oh, okay, I know where this kid lives. But, by the way, you won't, because I've since moved. Anyway. No, yeah, sure. It was the New Mexican education system. The New Mexican education is extremely messed up, especially since I've moved to a different state, further east. And like, the kind of programs, even like the worst, even like the, not the worst, like, some of the less fortunate schools in this state have, is like, man, I wish I had that. Like, y'all have more than just Spanish and Chinese as language electives. You can take German, you can take French. I looked it up. There's actually one of the schools in my area that offers a Nordic language. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. I'm not going to say which one it is, because that's going to whittle down my location. Anyway. I find it extremely cool. I find it extremely cool that this is a thing that is just happening with people, and it's like, man, when are y'all gonna export this to the desert? When are y'all gonna send this down my home state's way? Because I guarantee you there are some people in the state of New Mexico who are extremely smart, who just do not have the opportunity to find the thing that they would be good at, find the thing that they would be extremely smart with. It's just like that's just a... I'm sorry, I'm adjusting the mic if you heard that. They have the they could have the opportunity to do this thing that they would be particularly happy doing, and yet they are not given said opportunity. Excuse me. I warned you. I said I was gassy. Oh, good lord. Drink.
Appreciate it.
Got some tea. But yeah, basically it's just like you're not allowing people to actually discover things that would make them happy learning about, even just having as like a thing in their back pocket that I can do in their free time. If I had known about anthropology in middle school, I would have fast-tracked to getting a job as an anthropologist. However, really, there is no place for anthropology in our modern society. Not because it's not wanted, but because the second you make an anthropological statement, the second you say like, oh, these people were this way because of this, then you're gonna get called racist. You're gonna get called all the ists and ister and phobes under the sun. And quite frankly, that makes me very sad because I think that there are a lot of things about our world, about like culture and that kind of stuff that we just do not know because we refuse to look at our world and look at our culture and at the cultures of the people around us and at the culture around the world, and we refuse to look at it with a critical eye, and instead we've essentially fallen into this dogmatic struggle of, hey, you are this way. You are this way because of who you are, and don't you dare say that to someone else. And I got told that a lot when I was a kid. Because I was told a lot when I was a kid that I was going to struggle with socializing. Because of some anxiety issues that I had. And it was like maladaptive anxiety something. It was weird. And I was told this in middle school. It was like, hey, you are going to struggle with socialization for the rest of your life. You're not going to be able to talk to people comfortably. You're not going to be able to like enter like social interactions with any sense of like confidence. You're just going to be this wimpy little baby boy for the rest of your life. And really the issue becomes is that kind of thing is treatable, but the system that I was in refused to help. It essentially said, we want you to be weak, so that way we can take you and we can mold you into this little perfect cog that we can then export. And then we can say, hey, this guy, he's an engineer, he'll shut his mouth and he'll do what you tell him. Because that's the main thing that New Mexico exports. It's chili and engineers. Those are the two things they export. Let me tell you, living in the East, it is shocking how many New Mexico license plates you see, because it's legitimately like, I worked in a factory for a while, and there was this group of guys who worked the day shift, and all of them were New Mexicans. They were all, I mean, one of them was a gringo like me, but most of them were Chicano, well, Hispanic. I shouldn't say Chicano. Most of them were Hispanic, and like there was one gringo guy, but him and I were like two peas in a pod because it was like, hey, you're New Mexican, I'm New Mexican, my homies over there are New Mexican. That's crazy. And it's just like, wow. You graduated from the school that I was near. Like, New Mexico has like 3 colleges, I'm pretty sure, if you count Texas A&M, which is Texas and South New Mexico. I don't know why it's not A. Texas and South New Mexico. I don't know. That's weird. Like, is it Albuquerque? I don't freaking know, man. But anyway, essentially, it's just like the New Mexico government is shockingly similar to a lot of other governments, specifically a lot of corrupt governments in the Middle East, let's say, just for thematic fact, because I harp on this a lot. You can ask any of my friends. New Mexico, aside from ethnographically, is very similar to Afghanistan, which scares the crap out of me, because if the Union were to ever fall, I know my home state is gonna be one of the most bloody battlefields ever. I don't know why it's peaking so much. It's gonna be one of those bloody battlefields ever. And it's just like, that's crazy to me. Because here's the thing. Here's how New Mexican politics work. Right? And this is a microcosm of how everything in New Mexico works. That guy sucks. Put me in power, and I won't suck like him. And then that person proceeds to suck. And it's like, that guy sucks. Put me in power. Nothing ever gets done in that state. It is just a slog. And while nothing's getting done, there are violent people going around doing things that are bad and traumatizing kids and being evil, and it's just like, the state doesn't want to stand up against evil. They just want to be like, okay, listen, as long as you let us do our government thing, we'll let you do what you're doing unless it gets in our way. And it's just like, because there are good people who live in the state. It's like, They don't care. It's such an experience living in a state that says, oh, we care about you. And then they proceed to do everything in their power to prove to you that they don't care about you. Because it's just like, okay, we're gonna ruin our housing market because we want to be closer to California. That's literally all New Mexico does. They're basically copycatting California without having the kind of industries that California has. Like, basically the only, like, parallel thing that we have in California, we had, or have, I don't know, I've heard that it's fallen harder times, is freaking chili farming. That's, like, the main thing that the state does. And it's like, okay, we export this stuff, and then we have, like a few of the best engineering schools in the state, in the country, apparently. And it's just like, okay, cool. NMSU and UNM and PANM are like, they're some of the best schools for engineering, and apparently they have good medical field. And this is like, I can't see it. I can't see it. But then you go outside of, like, college towns, or, like, the few, like, major cities, like, you go outside of, like, Roswell or Gallup, or, I mean, like, Albuquerque is just straight up a college town, so is Cruces, but, like, you go outside of those major towns, and you can literally find tiny little, like, Pueblo villages that are still being occupied by people. You can still find, like, these tiny little towns that are nestled in, like, these fertile valleys, and it's just like, wow, are we still in the age of cowboys? It's still the Victorian era, where everyone's just, like, trying to just barely get by off of minor subsistence farming and ranching. And then you go to a different part of the state, and it's like, wow, this is a modern American city. This is just like Phoenix, or Dallas, or San Jose, or friggin' whatever. And, like,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
a lot of the potential locked away in that state is just being sapped away by other people. It's leading to a brain because all the smart New Mexicans leave New Mexico. That's just the fact. Everyone who's a smart New Mexican will eventually leave New Mexico. Anyway, I'm gonna stop talking about my state because it makes me very depressed to talk about. Yeah. I've been learning German. I've actually been, like, putting in the effort to learn German. I know a few phrases in German because, like I said, one of my parents grew up in the army speaking English and German. She had to learn. Well, now I just. My mom grew up as an army brat, and she had to learn German because they were deployed to Germany. So I've grown up hearing a lot of German bywords, like "Aus mit du" turned into "Raus mit du," and it's just like Germano-Spanglish. It's just like, it's such an innate thing that I've just become comfortable with, and it feels so natural that when I'm at work, I'm gonna be like, hey, raus mit. It's just like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, dude? And it's just like, and I just say, yeah, move. I have to do something. And it's, I don't know. It's cool. It's particularly cool that I have this unique thing that comes from my family heritage, but it's just like, man, it kind of feels like it's handicapping me sometimes. I feel like a lot of things in life are handicapped, and I think this is just a fatalist viewpoint. Well, not fatalist, more so nihilist. For some reason, I'm really big on talking about that right now. Probably because I'm trying to talk it out of me. I'm trying to get as much of this crap out of my head as possible, so I can just leave it in the past. Because I've changed. I have since changed. Since I've moved here, I have changed a lot as a person. I can go up to random people and just start a conversation with them, which is something I'd like to point out. To those people who said to me that you will struggle with this for the rest of your life, You could have helped fixed it. You could have helped fix it. And you didn't. On purpose. Because you wanted someone who was going to have a dependency on what you were selling. And then you were like, yeah, so we're going to tell this stupid kid that, hey, you're going to struggle with this in particular for the rest of your life. I'm still on that. Because it really upsets me. Because I gave up so much in my life because I thought that it was going to be hard. And I didn't want it to be hard. And since I've moved here, I've realized that a lot in life, a lot of the stuff that you do in life, the best part about it is I hate that I'm quoting this guy, but the best part about it is eating bitterness and saying, I'm fine. I'm good. Like, one thing that I really wish school would go back to is having mandatory gym classes for young men and like having electives like boxing and wrestling. Where I grew up, that wasn't really a thing. I know maybe up here it's different, but like back where I grew up, the only real physical elective was gym, and it was basically just, hey kids, come to the gymnasium and we'll jump rope and we'll play ball games, and that was it. And it was like, man, I want to punch crap. I want to fight. I want to move around. That is like something that's another thing that I got really into when I was little, because I started doing Taekwondo at such a young age. Because every time we would drive to school, we would drive past this Taekwondo place, and I was like, man, what is that? And then one day, I finally asked my mom if we could stop there and see what they were all about, and it was a Taekwondo school. And we walked in, and they were doing a class, and they were showing off forms, and I was like, man, I really want to do this. So a couple weeks later, we go there, and we start talking about it, and it's like, why do you want to learn Taekwondo? And it's because I think it's cool, and it's just like, man, I wish I still had something like that. I regret every single day that I quit Taekwondo. I really regret it, because it just kind of threw out the one thing that was really going good for me in my life. I was doing really well. I was progressing through my belts pretty fast. I was picking it up really well. I was starting to lose weight. I was starting to be healthier. Why does my tablet screen keep turning on and off? That is scaring me a little. Am I being watched? What am I saying? Of course I'm not being watched. Nobody is going to try and watch me because I'm such an uninteresting person. But I love martial arts, and that's why once I get some money saved up, I'm going to try to start doing martial arts again. Once I figure out what's going on with schooling and stuff, because I have ultimately decided that I am going to go to post-secondary education. Even though I talked before, I don't know if I still have the video up, but I talked before about how I got through high school and I decided I was never going to do school again because I hated it so much. But now that I've started living here, and now that I've kind of got this mindset where it's like, suffering for a purpose is good, actually, it's like, okay, I'm going to suffer through school a little bit more, so that way I can make more money, so that way I can do interesting things and have interesting things to talk about. And that way, maybe people will want to be around me more. Maybe that way people will actually be... Maybe I won't have to approach people, and people will approach me and be like, hey dude, that's super cool. I guess that's just the way it is. Yeah. That's really all I got. Got to half an hour, a little over. That's pretty dang cool. Yeah. So anyway, folks, thank you for watching. God bless. Stay safe, and you know, drink some tea. That might make you happy.